one man is rewriting the rules and taking it to another level.
And the next level, and the next level.
The seventh level.
You just feel how natural it is. You feel how open you become to your prospects, and in response, they usually become more open to you.
Founded by Jeremy Miner, Seventh Level is the only friction-free sales system guaranteed to raise revenue.
In my life, it's been revolutionary.
And his followers are feeling the difference.
His training has transformed everything.
It is precise, and it really draws out emotions.
People around the world are starting to catch on.
We're going to tie in the new model of selling to your product or service that you sell.
These tools can work for anyone in any industry at any time.
And it's time to get on board before the ship sets sail. It's Seventh Level with Jeremy Miner.
All right, Jeremy Miner, Wednesday here in Scottsdale, Arizona, our headquarters here. So every Wednesday, we go live in our Facebook group, Sales Revolution, and we interview a client. And what we do with that client is we break down their sales process, and we let you ask them questions so you can sell more as well. Now, the person I'm going to bring out today, I'm going to share with you a little bit of their background when they come out here, and I'm going to let you guys ask them any question that you want. So as I do this interview, this individual has promised me that he will give you some golden nuggets. He will show you some different questions we've trained him to ask. He's going to show you some different tonality that he's learned in our Advanced Inner Circle program and kind of role play with me so you can take that and use it for what you sell as well. Okay. Now, if you're brand new, if you just started following me, we're on StreamYard today, a device. So we're going live inside our Facebook group, Sales Revolution. About 124,000 of you run around in there, somewhere in that range. I also decided to go live on our YouTube channel today. That thing's growing crazy. LinkedIn, Facebook business page. I think there's about 170 some thousand of you on that sucker, and my own personal Facebook. Now, if you started just follow me, I'm Jeremy Miner. I'm the founder of Seventh Level. No sunglasses and getting out of a car, getting into a car. Thank God your training's great, but those promos are cheesy. Love you though. Joe, what are we going to do with you? I don't know. Should we forgive Joe for saying that? I don't know, Joe. Those comments could be trouble for you. We're going to have to ask the audience as they get on here what they want to do with you on that one. All right. So you're brand new. Jeremy Miner, founder of Seventh Level. We're a sales training organization that trains people exactly like you watching me here in the purple shirt today. So we train salespeople like you. We train sales professionals like you. We train sales executives like you, sales leadership like you. We train, sales management, coaches, consultants, business owners, entrepreneurs, and we train you how to use certain techniques, questions to use in tonality that work with human behavior rather than work against it. So you know how you might have been taught that you have to do all the work. You've got to do all the selling, the convincing. We're going to train you how to get your prospects to do all the work. We're going to train you how to get your prospects to sell themselves. We're going to train you how to get your prospects to overcome their own objections. We're going to train you how to get your prospects to pull you in rather than you pushing and pressuring them, because you already know that doesn't work that well, don't you? Okay. All right. Now, if you're on the live right now, I'm going to have you grab your phone real quick, and I'm going to have you go down to the comments section because I know you're on the phone, and I'm going to have you post in the comments, post hashtag live. So if you're on your phone right now, go down to the comments, post hashtag live. And if you're on the replay, post hashtag replay. So if you're on the live right now, post hashtag live. If you're on the replay, post hashtag replay. I better see a ton of hashtag lives right now if I'm going to interview this guy and let you ask him any questions, because I can assure you when we interview clients in here, they are doing 2, 3, 5 times the sales that you're doing right now. Before the training, they were decent, maybe average, maybe below average, but everything has changed for them. So you might want to pay attention, because there's certain requirements that anybody that wants to be interviewed in our group, that's a client, that we require, like how much commissions they're making, all that stuff. We require that even to qualify to be interviewed in this Facebook group. So anytime we bring somebody out here, there's somebody that's already in the top 1% of all salespeople in the industry after we train them. So you might want to pay attention to this. All right. So hashtag live, hashtag replay. Now I'm going to have each of you smash the heart button. So smash the heart button, smash the like button. So smash the heart button, smash the like button. I have you do that because it creates more engagement, and it also causes the different platforms to show this to more people so we can help more people. All right. Enough about me. None of you care about me. You only care about yourselves. You guys are humans. That's just behavioral science 101. Let's bring out our client here. Eduardo, how are you, big dog?
Just trying to stay out of trouble, man.
Trying to stay out of trouble. Are you getting in trouble over there? All right, good.
Try not to.
So Eduardo, you live up in Canada, eh? Where do you live?
Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Okay,
Still cold up here, man.
Winnipeg. Yeah, I just got on here a few minutes before so I could talk to you a little bit about see what's going on. And I actually met you in person at one of our live events. What was it, about a month ago or something, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was super helpful.
Yeah. Well, typically people come to our events and become clients and go through our trainings because they always want to sell more. They never want to come to us to sell less, for sure. That's good. All right. So tell everybody your industry. Everybody's going to know, like, what do you sell? What's going on?
Mm-hmm. So I work in B2B commercial insurance. So I help protect business owners against property liability loss. And a lot of my selling, it's done over the phone, cold calling, a little bit inbound, but we have a team of setters now.
So mainly cold calling. And then you have, like, do you have SDRs that book appointments for you as well?
We do now, yeah. We've been scaling quite a bit, and now we have a team of SDRs that do a lot of that for me.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I believe you're still in your late 20s, right? From what I understand.
29 years old, man. 29 years old.
Dude.
Yeah.
Getting old. And you, when I asked earlier, you've been in sales about 7-8 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Started off in a cold calling role.
So let's go back to your, and how long have you been a client with us?
So I started back in October 2022.
Okay.
It was kind of a crazy story. What had happened was I had just started working for a startup B2B commercial insurance for about 5 months.
Okay.
And there was one day where I had lost 2 fairly large deals for the company on the exact same day. I actually remember specifically that, like, down feeling I got where your heart kind of like sinks.
Yeah.
And right after that, I was like, okay, I've got to change something.
So you lost a couple of big deals and you're like, maybe I should learn maybe a higher skill level so I don't lose those deals. How much were each of those deals worth? Like, if you would have closed them, how much would you stand to make off each of those sales?
About 10 grand
each?
One day. No, total.
Okay. So you just lost 10 grand in commissions. Had you had the right skills, you could have made those commissions, but more importantly, help those prospects get where they want, solve their problems, right? Okay. So that caused you to be like, maybe I should do something about this. How did you find us at 7 Level? Like, where did this all start?
So after that day, I had been kind of looking around for some sort of sales training because I knew that there was some stuff that I didn't know that a top producer would probably know.
Yeah.
So I was looking around, and then I saw some guy with decent hair.
The 2 parts on the hair. I mean, I saw somebody on one of, because we do hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think, in ads a month that we spend on social media with Meta. And sometimes every once in a while, if I get bored on a Sunday, I'll look at some comments on one of the ads that'll just show up. And I saw these 2 people that are like, never trust a guy that has 2 parts in his hair. I promise you guys, never trust a guy that parts his hair on 2 sides. I'm like, I've never heard about that. That's so true. Definitely don't come to us to sell more. Don't learn how to sell more from a guy that's 2 parts. Always trust the guy with the 1 part for sure. 100%. Right. and see, we got a guy here on YouTube. It was commercials with the sunglasses. See, Joe, he's making fun of me for my sunglasses on. So we probably have like 80 ads going on at the same time every single day. So, some people try to make fun. Do you know why I actually, in a few ads here and there, do you know why I actually start the ad with sunglasses on?
No, I don't.
It's strategic. It's a pattern interrupt because you're going to get like people that are kind of, I wouldn't call them haters, but they're just going to be like, oh, look at that guy. Like, he's got sunglasses on, and they'll be like, boom, 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 like all these comments. And it just causes your ads to go viral. So
No.
it actually causes your ad cost to go way down, because then it goes in front of like 10 times the reach. So some of my ads, I'll do that on purpose, because quite literally I know there will be some people that will make fun of the sunglasses. I take them off after about 15, 20 seconds, but I do that because I know I'll get a lot of comments real quick, and those people usually never do anything anyways, but it causes the ad to go viral.
So Joe's helping you out, huh?
Joe's helping.
What are we going to do with you, Joe?
What are we going to do? Thanks, Joe. We really appreciate you making fun of the sunglasses. You guys are smart, always helping us out. Now, here's what I want each of you guys to, and Joe, we're just being sarcastic. We love you. What I want each of you to do is I want you to start asking questions. So I want you to ask questions to Eduardo. Maybe a question is, I promise I'm not a hater. I love your stuff. I'm just messing with you. Yeah, Joe, Joe, if you know me, I'm like really sarcastic. So as Eduardo knows, since he was at one of our live events. So what I want you guys to do is ask Eduardo or myself any questions. So as I'm interviewing Eduardo, I'm going to ask him like to give you some different questions you guys can use to help you sell more. But I want you guys to ask him questions like, hey, what was the biggest thing you had to learn to get in the top 1%, or whatever questions you guys have, post them in the comments. We'll probably get 40 or 50 questions, and I'll pick like the top 6, 7, or 8 questions, and me and Eduardo will sit here and answer them for you. Okay, so you got into sales, okay, before you were a client.
Mm-hmm.
How did you used to sell before you became a client? I have to know.
So going back to 2022,
yeah,
a lot of it was, I would say, more pushy tactics.
What do you mean by pushy tactics? Give me an example. What's a pushy tactic?
I kind of cringe even just thinking about it, but it would just be trampling over people and remembering like 50 to 100 objection handling things that you would learn in some random course. Okay. And you'd always kind of make it about yourself, not really about the prospect. Okay. Or the client.
Yeah.
And I remember just going to like a lot of deals just thinking, am I even really like helping this person out?
Yeah. Yeah. What, so how many selling that way, how many sales do you feel like you were losing like on maybe like a monthly basis? You thought about it?
If I were to ballpark it, probably at least in my industry, about 5 to 10.
Okay. So let's just say maybe 7 a month. And then what's your average commission you usually get paid on each sale?
It can vary between 2 to 3K a deal.
But let's just say 2,500. So what's 2,500 times 7 sales a month? Okay. So you're losing about 17,000 a month in commissions.
Yeah.
Okay, times 12 in a year. Oh, so you're saying you're losing about 210,000 a year selling that way.
Mm-hmm.
That could be trouble for you. So you're like, hey, I'm tired of losing sales. I feel like I should make. You get into the training. What did you start noticing once? Because you got into our NEPQ 3.0 program. That's kind of our mid-tier level. That was the first training program when we looked you up that you got into. And then you got into advanced inner circle like a month and a half later. Let's just talk about the first month and a half. Get in the training, you start learning the advanced tonality, you start learning questions for your industry. What did you notice started changing with your prospects?
So for me, if you actually look at my testimonial there,
I saw
right after I joined the program.
Yeah.
Even just by applying neutral languaging.
Yeah.
And teaching some of the things that you teach in the portal about having the prospect basically solve their own problems.
Yeah.
I managed to close 2 large deals that basically paid off the course, right?
How long did it take you to do that?
A month.
Okay. So just in the first month. So in the first month, you already like still going through the training, because like you're not going to master like these type of skills that we're training in the courses within like 2 weeks. But you're going to start learning and you're going to start increases. So you're saying in the first month, how you made 2 extra sales. What did they pay you on each of those?
Overall, it ended up being about like around 15K in commissions off of those 2 deals.
So you made an extra 15,000 the first month. Good for you. Congratulations. Yeah. Let's keep going here, because as you know, as you get further into the training, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, you start to learn more and master it more. So let's go 4, 5, 6 months in the program. 6 months in the program, what were you starting to notice?
I was starting to notice that I didn't have to like chase people down.
Mm.
And the authority that you start to get
Mm.
just by having people solve their own problems,
Mm-hmm.
it honestly made selling more pleasurable as of an experience.
In what way?
Because you don't feel as if you're forcing people into decisions, basically.
Okay, you're
It's
getting them to
best way
kind of
describe it.
pull you in where it's their choice, but really you help facilitate that and kept them on the path.
Yeah, and they're actually opening up to you. They're not closed off the whole time because you remember the 50 objection handling things from
Yes, you
ABC.
got them to let. So the main thing you learn is you learn from the training exercises in the virtual training courses as a client, the group training with their sales trainers, how to get them to let their guard down. So when you ask questions that we train you for your industry, instead of them giving you like vague, generalized, surface level answers, they were actually opening up to you and telling you what was really going on. Is that the difference? Okay, let's give them a few examples. Then I'm going to start going through some of these questions. What was a good NEPQ connection question that you learned early on? Because there's several you could ask for your industry. What was a good one you used, and kind of how did the prospects react to that?
So a lot of my early on NEPQ journey was doing cold calling.
Yeah.
So you don't really do too many connecting questions, but now if I'm doing connecting questions, it's from an SDR booking a call.
Yeah.
And that might just be something like, so when you were speaking to XYZ rep, what was it that he brought up in that conversation that, possibly made you want to look into this a bit further?
Yeah, good. Okay, so hey, when you were talking with my colleague Tiffany, what was it that you guys, I guess, went over that caused you to, want to look into this further? That curious tone, right? You're verbal pacing that out. Now, that simple question, as long as you verbal paced out with the right tone, typically, what did most of your prospects do?
They give you a direction and why they're there.
Yeah.
And then what they're trying to, basically why they're on the call, which you kind of use later on in the process.
100%. They start to open up, right? So they start to open up, and they kind of tell you what's going on. Now, let's start answering a couple of these questions right here. We got some really good ones here. I don't see Eduardo Campos on LinkedIn. I don't know. We're live on LinkedIn. Okay, Joe. Hey, we're going to start with Joe here on YouTube. What was the biggest light bulb moment going through the training that made you realize that one big mistake you were making? What was one big mistake you were making where you're like, oh man, I can't believe I've been making that mistake? That's a good question.
That's a really good question. I would say the biggest thing off the get-go was that I didn't need to be assumptive.
Okay.
You have to, I realized very early on that being assumptive actually causes people to get their guard up.
Yeah, if it's early in the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now he's not saying like as you build a big gap and you help them find all these different problems, they're emotionally involved, they see what the future looks like. I can be more assumptive then.
Yeah.
But in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, how much trust or credibility do you have if you don't know them? Not much. So if you start to assume too early, it's one of the biggest reasons why you get pushback and sales resistance.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go up another one here. Okay, Ellen, were you apprehensive about spending money to leverage when you started, when you may not have had too much money to begin, fearful about losing a lot of money? Were you afraid? I guess she's asking, were you afraid to invest in training, I guess.
Yeah, I was one of those guys that didn't want to invest in the training. I valued money more than time. And I think one thing that I found super valuable in the training afterwards that really just changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Yeah.
It was actually by Luke Badman. He's
one of our sales trainers. Yeah.
And he was talking about the concept of how you really have like two resources in life, really. It's money and time. Now, most people, they're scared to actually spend their money. But the thing is that when you spend your money, you actually can cut back on time quite a bit. Right?
Yeah, because if you acquire the right skills, you don't have to work all those hours, because each conversation you're closing far more of those rather than going through the numbers to try to survive. That's one good way to look at it. I guess the way I'd answer your question, Ellen, is, which is more risky for you and which is more expensive in reality? Is it more expensive for you to get the funding together invest in the training, you know exactly what to say, what to ask, how to use your tone to sell more? Or is it more expensive to not invest in the training? Your problems stay the same. You keep losing sales that you could be making, and nothing ever changes. In reality, which is more expensive? Probably losing sales that you could be making if you had the right skills. That's a good thing. Okay, let's keep going on. There's some other good questions. Ellen, thank you very much for that question. It's a good question. The most successful people in life, I always say, are the people, they don't learn from their mistakes. They learn from other people's mistakes so they don't make the same mistakes themselves. It's a very key, important part here. Now, let's talk about situation questions. What's a good situation question that we train you? Because there's several you got to ask for your industry, but what's a good one that really starts to open them up where they start telling you what their real situation is?
Yeah. Just so I understand, what caused you to go with XYZ brokerage versus all the other options out there?
Yeah, see, this is important because you're going to find your first, this is one of your last situation questions, I know,
Yep.
for your industry. So what he did there is he's starting to seed out. So his first situation questions, he would have found out who they already use for insurance because he sells commercial insurance. So he would have found out, what are you finding out? Who they're currently using now?
How
What else
long?
how long? Are you finding out how much are they making you pay for that type of coverage?
Yeah.
Are you,
It's usually my fourth question.
yeah. So how much are they making you pay for that coverage? Making you pay. Does everybody see what I just did? How much are they making you pay for just that coverage, right? What type of tone that? It's kind of like a skeptical / concern tone. And then do that again where you ask that question. I want to see you do it. Everybody pay attention to his face.
This is actually something that you taught me at the live event.
Yeah.
And again, you can only learn these things when you see it in person.
Yeah.
As Yash told me.
Yeah.
Yash is also one of your top
One of our
guys.
account managers. Yeah.
But help me understand, what caused you to go with XYZ brokerage versus all the other options out there?
Yeah. Now, what are you seeding there with that tone and facial expression?
A bit of doubt.
Yeah. So you've been with this, broker the last 3 years. I mean, they're fairly decent. What caused you to go with that type of coverage rather than all the other options out there? See, it's like you're seeding doubt that something about that thing they have, the policy, that they might not know might not be that bad. Because if you just said, oh, that's a horrible policy, you shouldn't have that, what are they going to think? Oh, well, he's just saying that because he's trying to sell me something, right? Their guards up. They might get defensive. I don't want to, on the opposite side, say, oh, that's a great policy and great coverage, and reinforce that they should stay with it either. So I'm seeding doubt by what caused you to go with that policy rather than all the other options out there? Like, you're seeding doubt. That triggers them to start to have some internal tension that maybe they made the wrong choice, and they become more open. What's happened since you came back from that event a month ago when I showed you how to change your tonality and your facial expression with that question?
That was the biggest takeaway I got from the event. It's that you have to get your face into it. That was super. That was my second light bulb moment, I would say. But
Right.
I would say that just that one shift alone, it completely changes that dynamic of how people answer your questions.
Yeah.
Completely.
How are they answering your questions now on that one?
Less surface answers. I would say.
Give me an example. What are they saying usually?
Instead of it just being like XYZ brokerage, they'll kind of expand on what they're actually saying.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, I'm with XYZ brokerage, but I was going with them because of XYZ and ABC and so on.
Yeah. So it opens up, you get more of an overview of what's going on. Okay, let's take a couple more questions. I love some of these questions here. Hey, this is from Eric Schiller on Facebook. Hey, Eduardo, great to see you. Quick question. What was your ramp up time when you first started in 2022? I think the training program, increasing close rates, reducing sales cycle times, and reducing your no-shows. What was your ramp up time? That's a good question from Eric. I'll let you answer that.
Yeah. So I saw immediate impact in the first month as far as a closing ratio. The mistake I made.
What did your close ratio go from before the training to where it is now?
It's doubled from before I started to now.
It's only
basically doubled. About doubled. Yeah.
It's only doubled?
It's only doubled.
That's fairly decent. Okay, good. All right. Well, what's the specific numbers? I saw you post it here in the Facebook group. What did you say? I want to see the numbers. It was because you were doing you were doing halfway decent before the training. You went from, let's see here. You went from 30.
So the show up rate was 39 to 69%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just read that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. So, what did you change from what we train you? Because we don't just train you the words to use and the tonality. We also teach you other things like an email and DMs to increase your show up rates. If you do that, what do we help you with doing, like double your show up rates?
Most of that was actually just getting a formal process in place. Because again, I was working for a startup at the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the sales figures that, like for a startup, they're still just kind of figuring that out, right?
Yeah.
So it allowed me to put like an actual process in place to like really start tracking those numbers very importantly, because without that, it kind of be like if you were an NBA player and you didn't know your own stats.
Yeah, you thought you were shooting 50% from the 3-point line when you're only shooting like 12%. All right, that's good.
Exactly.
Okay, let's see. Going places on YouTube. How do you keep them on the line even if they're not interested? What do they say? Like, let's say you're cold calling and they're like, "Oh, I'm not interested." How do you keep them on the line?
Yeah, that's not a problem. And just so you're aware, I'm not even really sure if I can even really help yet. I'd have to understand a bit more about ABC and XYZ just to see if there's any sort of gap there, because you might be better off just staying with where you're at. For example, who are you guys using now?
So, okay, so you've learned that from us, the problem statement. So first of all, what do we have to do? If somebody says, "I'm not interested," that's just a defensive mechanism. Going places on YouTube, it's just a defensive mechanism. Most of the time it's based on your tonality that triggers that fight or flight mode. So you just feel like, "Oh, yeah, John," and just so you're aware, I'm not quite sure we could even help you yet. We'd have to know more about, kind of the coverage that you have now, kind of what they're making you pay compared to maybe what you're wanting to do, just to see if we can do anything good for you, because you might even be better off staying with who you already have. Who do you guys use now for your XYZ? Now, why do I say I'm not quite sure we could even help you yet? Why would I say that, Eduardo? What does that do?
It gets the guard down.
Yeah, because most salespeople are like, "Well, hey, if you just give me 2 months of your time, I can explain it how we can save you money. If we can save you 20%, would you be interested?" No, I'm not interested, because that's what every salesperson does. So we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to kind of push them away to get them to let their guard down. "Oh, John, and just so you're aware, I'm not quite sure we could even help you yet." We'd have to see, that's a disarming. And at the very end, why would you say? Because you might even be better off staying with who you already have. Why do you say that?
Because you're remaining neutral.
Yes.
Yeah.
It automatically causes their job to guard. Now, when we train you that, because that's when you started learning that in advanced inner circle, where did it take your cold calling percentages from? Like, if you talk to 10 people, you'd book this many to the next appointment. What was it before compared to what is it now?
It doubled. Yeah. Like all the conversations I had somewhere to actually go instead of just kind of like being like, "Oh, okay, that's fine."
Yeah.
Like I actually had a direction with the conversation.
Yeah.
And if once you to get better and better, you get things in the portal and through the trainings that basically allow you to keep the conversation going to eventually get to the gap. Which is
so
ultimately what you're shooting for.
If you guys, you might, even on my free content, which we keep that very basic, somebody asked me like, "Oh, somebody posted them like, 'Oh, you guys shouldn't buy any training from Jeremy. It's all on YouTube.'" Like, interesting. So I literally spent 2 hours on Sunday and I went back and counted exactly how many long form YouTube videos I've released in 3 years. And it was like 59 hours worth of content, because each YouTube video is about 10 to 12 minutes. Then I went back and counted how many hours are in like our advanced inner circle training program over that last 3 years. The group training calls, the portal, all that stuff, 3,112 hours of training. And on YouTube, we've got 59 hours. Like, how would all the training be on YouTube if in inner circle there's 3,112 hours over the last 3 years, and on YouTube we released 59, and none of that's industry specific. I'm not sure you understand the training's different than just like the basic stuff on YouTube. Okay, I love people's logic. Just keep holding themselves back from selling more. Nothing we can do for those. Okay, so let's go back in your problem awareness question. What's like your first problem awareness question you asked to get them to kind of start to open up and tell you what their real problems are?
Most of that really depends on how the situation questions go.
Yeah, sure.
So depending on what they're saying there, I'd say the more common one of how I get into the problem awareness is, so John, earlier you had mentioned that the building might be a bit underinsured, like a bit vulnerable because of X, Y, and Z, right? Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it kind of leans into them.
Yeah.
What else? What's another problem awareness question you use that helps them like start to build the gap in their mind?
Yeah, so in the situation questions, if they said that they've been seeing some rate hikes over the last couple of years, or maybe like auto renewed.
Yeah.
Common would be like, okay, so this might be a bit of a cheesy question, but would you want to have to keep paying these rate hikes if you didn't have to, though?
And what do they say to that?
Well, obviously not. Okay, but besides saving money, why do you think you wouldn't?
Yeah. So what you want to do there, I'll even help you with this, is you want to go say, okay, now if it's a booked call, so if they would have already talked to an SDR, I would say, so, I mean, you've been with XYZ, you've been on the XYZ policy the last 3 years. What's caused you to feel like you might want to look at something different?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do if it's a book call from an SDR, because they would have already talked to the SDR. There's something going on for them to book, right? If it's a cold call, you wouldn't use that. You'd use the other ones. All right, let's go through another question here. Okay, somebody on Facebook, I can't see your name. How do you feel is the most effective way to disarm or prevent objections before they even happen? Yeah, what's the most effective way to prevent objections from happening? That's a good question.
Yeah, it just depends on the objection, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to prevent?
Yeah, so what's a big objection that you typically get in your industry?
Well, it used to be, I don't, like, my objections got cut by a significant amount,
Right.
but because they're all pre-handled now.
What do you think your percentage of objections are now compared to what they used to be? How much lower are they?
I would just be totally ballparking it, but
Okay.
I would say that probably got cut at least by in half.
Okay, that's
At
something.
least
That's half as many objections as you used to get. Yeah, good. That's good. That's good. Less objections makes more sales. It's a myth for somebody to say the more objections you get, the more interested they are. How is that even remotely true? The more objections they give you, the more interested they are? How does it make any sense? No, the more objections they give you, the more uncertainty they have with them feeling you can get them the results they want. That's why they're giving you objections. You want them to have less objections, because think about all the laydown sales you've ever got that had no objections. That makes no sense. Were they not interested? They didn't have any objections. It makes no sense. Okay, so
And one thing you actually talk about in the training too is that it's far easier to handle an objection in discovery or an engagement when you're asking questions instead of at the very end when they're in fight or flight mode.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Because they're emotional.
I want to prevent most of them from happening in their mind. I am Daniel, 2 solar sales today. Appreciate you, Jeremy. Good for you, Daniel. What training program of ours are you in? Congratulations. Let's see. Why did you change from NEPQ so fast? The program is for 12 months. Oh, so she's asking you, why did you go from NEPQ 3.0 to Advanced Inner Circle after 30 days? Actually, NEPQ 3.0 is the portal access is for 12 months, but the group training is only for 90 days. And it's by our sales trainers. But why did you change so quick into Inner Circle?
I just felt that I was getting some really good material in the 3.0, and this was like a year and a half. I know a couple of things have changed through that program.
We always update the training every about quarter. We make every training program better every 3 months.
Yeah, but again, going back to the time piece, I think time is one of the more important commodities in the world because you'll never get it back, right? You can always get money back, you'll never get time back. So I jumped back in the Inner Circle because I knew I get better faster.
Yeah.
because there was just more quantity of training and more personalized training from Jeremy.
Yeah, because I'm the one doing Inner Circle. I'm doing the group training with those smaller groups. We only let 60 people a month into that program, Advanced Inner Circle. Okay, Joe, how many other training courses did you use before NEPQ? And what is the biggest difference between those and NEPQ? Good question.
Like, should I name drop them?
I mean, it's up to you. I don't care. It's up to you. That's totally up to you. I don't care.
Totally fair. Yeah. No, I was involved in like Grant Cardone's training, Jordan Belfort's. I was in another gentleman's for a little while as well. I actually joined an objection handling course after Inner Circle, but then I jumped out of that because it was kind of useless at that point because I wasn't getting the objections.
Sure.
So I was in quite a few, and I have to say that of all of them, this is
what was the biggest difference? And those, I love Jordan Belfort and Grant. Those are great marketers, great industry titans. They've been around a long time. What was the difference in your mind from those programs compared to NPQ?
The biggest thing would be the tonality piece. You actually get hands-on tonality training, and every little detail in how you're saying things, between the pausing, the pacing, whether you're confused old man,
confused tone,
confused tone, all those little details can have such a massive impact on how people answer you.
Yeah. Why is the tonality piece so important in your mind?
It's because it's what makes the conversation sound natural.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody write this down. Your tone is how the prospect interprets the intention behind every question you ask. That's how they interpret why you're asking the question. It's very important, right? So if they feel like what actually happened? See, that's a concerned tone. They feel like I'm genuinely concerned. They start to build trust. They open up emotionally. If I'm like, oh, well, what actually happened? That's a curious tone. That doesn't make as much sense as a concerned tone in that context. So I can trigger different emotional drivers in the prospect's brain based on changing my tonalities depending on the situation and the facial expressions. I always say your facial expressions are the remote control to your tone. How do you have a confused tone if your face is still? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You can't do that. Okay, what about a solution awareness question? There's several solution awareness questions you have to ask to get them to see what the future looks like when the newfound problems are solved. Maybe just give us one example. Before today, were you out there looking for different ways to help protect yourself against the rate hikes, or what were we doing about really lowering your bill? What would you say to protect yourself against the rate hikes? Those are very key words for what you sell. We're not just randomly saying those words. Why do we want to say those words for your industry? In this context, it's the negative consequence, which in a way is like you're getting them to results-based thinking. Yeah. So, hey, before we got on the phone here, were you out there looking for, different, coverage to protect yourself against the rate hikes, or what were you doing about, making sure you weren't overpaying? If that's what they brought up, that maybe they've been all these rate hikes with their provider they have right now. Okay, let's go through another question here. Hi, Eduardo. My question is regarding closing. How do you keep the ether after presenting the money when people go back to not do anything with you? I don't know what that question means. Let's go with Michael. Rephrase that question. We just see Facebook user. We can't see your name. Rephrase that question. Michael from YouTube. What if you're approaching someone that has already used your services and may have stopped using those services because of price? Has that ever happened to you? No, because my company hasn't been around for long enough for that to actually happen, I would say. Yeah, that's okay. So let's move to a different question. Diego, what is a good opening line for old marketing agency prospects I already spoke with and understand their problem, but what are they able to close them? Diego, I'll help you with this. So Diego, we train you all this in our client training portals programs. You probably wouldn't want to get in there so you know all this, so you don't lose sales, but I'll give you kind of a hint because there's a lot more to say after what I show you here. Like me giving you one question, you're going to need to know what to say and ask depending on how they respond and how to loop back around. There's a whole lot more to this. So if I'm calling leads, that I've already talked to that didn't buy, I typically want to put papers in my hand to trigger like a pattern interrupt. So let's say you'd already talked with somebody, you're calling back 90 days later, they didn't buy. Yeah, is this John? Hey, John, it's Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy Miner. We talked, gosh, I want to say it was maybe three and a half months ago. You had us call back. You were looking at possibly getting like a higher quality lead to your salespeople so you could scale the business. Did you guys give up on scaling, or what actually happened with that? And what did I just do there? Did you guys give up on scaling, or what actually happened with that? It's hard for them to say, yeah, we gave up on scaling. Now, sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember. Now, what did I just do there? Yeah, it's Jeremy Miner with XYZ Agency. Looks like and I've got the papers here. Now, what type of tone did I just use there, Eduardo?
Well, I call it the familiar uncle tone.
Yeah, familiar uncle
familiar tone, yeah.
So there's 5 types of tone you have to master. There's a curious tone, there's a confused tone, there's a challenging tone, there's the concerned tone, and there's the playful tone. There are subcategories of each one of those. And underneath a curious tone, a subcategory would be a familiar tone. So has anybody ever got a call when they're like, hey, John, yeah, it's Amy, Amy Smith. And because they sound like somebody you should know, even though you don't recognize the name, what do? Oh, yeah, hey, how's it going? And you don't dare ask them, who is this? You just kind of go with it because you feel embarrassed because it sounds like you should know them because of their tone. So you wait 3, 4, 5 minutes after they talk and you might say, oh, where did we meet again? Right? But you wouldn't dare do that in the first 15, 20, 30 seconds because they sound like they know you, right? It's a familiar tone. Yeah, it's Jeremy Miner. See that upward deflection. Okay, we train you how to use your tone in all the training programs, Diego. You probably want to learn that for sure. All right, what about a consequence question? So once we get them to see what their future looks like, once the newfound problems are solved, why don't we want to rip that away from them to get them to defend themselves on why they want to change? What's a good consequence question we use for your industry?
Yeah, so if I'm focusing on the coverage, I say something like, what happens if you don't do anything about this? The business stays underinsured and something catastrophic happens, like a big fire loss. What do you do at that point?
And how do they respond to that?
No, I've got to do something about it.
Well, you certainly sound motivated, but for you, why look at doing this now? Like, why not push it down the road? Like, a lot of people do who end up what's a negative consequence?
Going out of business.
who end up having a catastrophe like a fire and end up going out of business. See, then they defend themselves on why they feel like they need to change. All right. Let's see. Caribbean 73. How well has your closing rate shows on cold calling been after you started the first paid training program before Inner Circle until today? Well, they're getting some data from you, Eduardo. Do you remember those numbers?
I don't remember those numbers. I know what they're at now. Yeah, but I was at about 39% no show, or sorry, it's 39% show up rate when I first started.
And you're at 67% now. Is that what you posted?
69%. Yeah.
69%. You're talking about show up rates, but I don't know if they're talking about like, if you talked with 10, how many would book to the next appointment? I'm not sure which stats they're asking there. Okay, here's somebody from Facebook. I can't see your name. How do you personally move from solution awareness and NPQ to closing the sale?
From solution awareness to closing the sale?
Yeah.
Well, you have to ask your consequence question first.
Consequence question. Yeah. Now, do you do a 1-call close, Eduardo?
No, it's usually about 3 call close.
Yeah. So what he's going to do in a longer sales cycle, because he's so he's going to have like a first call discovery, and he's going to go, solution awareness questions, consequence, and then he's going to transition into booking the next appointment. And in the next appointment, because the first one had been the cold call to book the appointment, then we got discovery call, right? And then what is the third appointment?
The third appointment, depending in my industry, if I have terms or if I'm literally just going to take over their policy, which you can do in my industry, which is actually how I cut my sales process by quite a bit.
Yeah.
Then If I have terms, then I'll do kind of like a commitment call in the next call.
Is it like going through a proposal, like going through the different options and then closing it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're going to go through like your presentation, then ask commitment questions and close the deal. So if you're in a one call close, that you might be asking here, if you sell B2C, you're going to you're going to go solution awareness questions, then consequence, then you're going to transition into your presentation, bring up the funds or funding they need to solve XYZ problems to get them where they want to be. And then you'll ask commitment questions to close them. Okay. All right. How do you use precision probing questioning techniques in your sales? How do you use like probing questions, precision probing?
Precision probing. I like that.
Yeah.
First, you have to clarify.
Yeah.
What do they mean by what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
And what are you actually clarifying on?
Yeah.
So you typically do that with, wait, what do you mean by ABC?
Yeah. Give us an example. Somebody says something to you and you're like, oh, how do you mean? Or what did you mean by, just give an example of one of your last sales.
Yeah. So John, earlier you mentioned that the building might be a bit vulnerable because of X, Y, and Z, right? Okay. How long has it been that way for?
That's like a probing question there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
That's
what's causing it to be underinsured?
What's caused it to be underinsured? Okay, good. Yeah. All right. Commitment questions. We won't go into presentations here. We don't have much time, but what's a good commitment question you ask, or several you ask for your space to get them to commit to take the next step and purchase what you're offering?
Yeah. So the main one I use is, so do you feel like this could be the answer for you?
Now, why do you say feel rather than think? Why not say, do you think this could be the answer for you? Why say feel?
Because people make decisions faster when they're feeling, not thinking.
Oh, yeah, they make
right?
decisions
Go and
emotionally.
Yeah.
Emotionally, they justify with logic, right? Every decision you make starts with your emotional side of your brain. I feel like having a drink right now because I'm thirsty. I feel like answering Diego's question because he asked it, right? See, every question, every decision you make starts with your emotional side of your brain. You can't make decisions logically without your emotional side of the brain. It's just the way the brain is hardwired by God, I guess, when he did. I'm not sure why he did it that way. Okay, any last words of advice? Eduardo, any last words of advice you'd give to like maybe a brand new salesperson or even a vet who might be doing good but wants to get to the next level? What advice would you give them? What do they need to do?
I would say watch out who you're listening to. That's the key thing.
What do you mean by that?
Has that person produced up and above results from what you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah. That's a good point. Not many people give that advice. Why did you give that advice?
Because there's a lot of gurus out there that, you post a couple of wins, but they haven't done it for like a very long time.
Yeah.
And they don't know like the ins and outs of knowing a very important skill like sales.
Yeah. Or maybe they, maybe as a sales trainer, they're making a ton of money as a business owner, but what were they doing when they were actually in sales in the trenches like you? Like how successful were they? Were they the number one rep in the industry? Like what were they making? These are questions you want to ask, because if you're like, I want to make this amount, how are you going to learn from somebody who never made that themselves? Probably going to be hard. Okay, Eduardo, congratulations. I just wanted to congratulate you on your results. But I think you're the person that knows that training is something you do, not something you did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're still going through the training. Why are you still trying to acquire skills to sell more when you've already more than doubled your sales and you were already doing good before? You
know what, man? I want to, one day when I'm on my deathbed, I want to say that was the best possible, right? So that's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in the chats, type in me if you want to start acquiring some of these skills we've talked with Eduardo. So if you want to start acquiring, like, hey, I need to learn how to ask better questions for my industry, or I need to learn how to use, facial expressions like Eduardo showed there. I need to learn how to use my tonality to get the prospect to let their guard down. I need to learn the skill to prevent objections from happening in their mind. Type in me if you want to acquire those skills, if you want to sell more. Now, if you don't want to sell more, you don't have to, right? You don't have to sell more. You can always stay selling at the same level you are month after month, week after week, quarter after quarter, year after year. But if you're the person, which I think most of you are, who wants to acquire those skills, type in me. Type in me. So here's what we're going to have you do. For those of you who want to acquire those skills, because let's say you want to double your sales that you're making now. So if you double your sales, what does that do? Typically, you double your commissions. It depends on what type of pay plan you're on, right? So if you want to double, what are you going to have to do to double your sales, to double your commissions? Are you going to double your working hours? Anybody want to double their working hours? You already work 8 to 10. Are you going to work 16 to 20? Eduardo, you want to work 16 to 20 hours a day?
I've tried it. I don't recommend it.
Probably not so good for you. You kind of burn out. So if you want to double sales, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to double your skill level. You know, what's the number one question that salespeople ask me at any event, or even if I do a virtual event or anything? The number one question they ask me is, Jeremy, how do I increase my confidence level in sales? How do I get more confidence? I'm like, well, that's easy. You acquire more skills. Because how can you have a high confidence in sales with a low skill level? Doesn't make any sense. You can get yourself pumped up all day, but at the end of the day, after you get like slapped around by your prospects and you don't make many sales, where does your confidence level go? Right back down to where your skill level is. So if you want to acquire the skill level and get up here, that does what to your confidence, Eduardo?
Increases
Drastically, because you sell well way more because you know what you're doing and you have confidence. I can't believe it. So if you want to acquire that confidence, that sales ability, message me directly right now. So message me directly right now. So Randy, message me directly right now. Steve, message me directly right now. I can't see some of you on the other Facebook pages because it just says Facebook user. Just message me directly right now. Either me or someone in my team will message you back some different training options if you want to sell more of your products or services. Eduardo, get out of here. I've got an appointment. Everybody, we love you. Message us if you want to sell more. Eduardo, stay out of trouble. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks, Eduardo.
Thanks,
everybody. Take care.